Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Justin Bezold with Trout Unlimited. I'm the project manager working on this Rattlesnake Creek project. I titled it the 2A, the design build. A couple years ago, I was here, and y'all awarded some funding to do preliminary designs. We are wrapping that process up right now. That project is to evaluate and design alternative water delivery systems for 5 water users off of Rattlesnake Creek. You'll have a map here in a second. We work for Trout Unlimited. I've been there since 2014. Any questions? So here's a quick roadmap. Give you a brief overview of the project, talk about Rattlesnake Creek, its fish, limiting factors, how it fits with the recovery plans, constraints, concerns, budget, timeline, questions. I'll let you know right now that if you compare this presentation to the one I gave 2 years ago, it's going to be very similar. So if you fall asleep, don't feel bad. The overall project is the one here at the top. The bottom is what we're requesting funding for right now. So the overall project is to convert 5 water users from surface water diversions and water use from Rattlesnake Creek to individual wells, alternative water delivery systems in continuity and hydraulic continuity with Rattlesnake Creek, located on their properties. We are today bringing 2 water users requesting funding for the design build phase. And we did set this project up originally to do preliminary designs first and then do a design build second stage. The overall project, when done, should improve stream flows by up to 1.55 CFS. I say up to because there's water rights involved and there's almost always some sort of haircut involved, some sort of dispute, neighbors arguing with each other, whatever it's going to be. But what I want to point out about the water rights here is that right now they are certificated for 1.55 CFS. These landowners do nothing else and just continue to try to get their water from Rattlesnake Creek. They can continue to try to get 1.55 CFS. They go through, and this is all 5 of them, they go through the change process, the water right change process. Even if the water is reduced a little bit, that 1.55 is still functionally going to stay in stream because no one else can take it at that point. Because all the water users on Rattlesnake Creek have their own individual water rights. So in a way, we get the 1.55 CFS, whether it's legally protected or whether it's just physically protected. And I bring that up because that's one of the things that when Trout Unlimited does water projects, we really do try to look at projects in a way that we can get the maximum protection. Sometimes it's legally, sometimes it has to be physically. The 2 water users down here that we're going to work with now account for about 0.44 CFS. There'll be 2 wells. And they use it for irrigation and stockwater. So here's the project location. You can see Rattlesnake Creek, the red dot up there in the top left or right corner, whichever way you're looking. Relative to Yakima, it's up the Natchez River. It's about 25-30 miles upstream. The point of diversion down there in the bottom corner is about 1.75, give or take. You can see the line here doesn't line up with the creek very well anymore. That line, I would argue, is not going to line up with the creek very well on any given year because the creek moves around a lot as it comes out of the mountains and goes across its alluvial fan. The groundwater that they're going to be connecting with is in this area, which is actually the alluvial fan for Rattlesnake Creek. And our hydrogeologist, excuse me, has taken a look at this and says that he thinks the water is moving this way, which is a little counterintuitive because it's the Natchez River's coming down there, but that does look like it is the alluvial fan for Rattlesnake Creek. The 2 water users we're going to work with, and there will be another map later, are going to be these right here. This is the overall project area of the 5 water users. Any questions? Why are we working in Rattlesnake Creek? It's got ESA, threatened steelhead, and bull trout, so there's 2 fish to help there immediately. It's got Chinook, it's got coho salmon, it's got rainbow trout and cutthroat trout. So it's got the fish species we're worried about. It has the potential, because we have willing landowners and a limited number of diverters. In fact, I'll go back, I'll show you on one slide. If it doesn't. Okay, it doesn't matter. there's not very many diverters on Rattlesnake Creek is the point I'm trying to get across here. And that really means that when you do an in-stream flow project, the fewer number of diverters that are on the system means that you are more likely to get your actual in-stream flow in stream. It does experience low flows from mid-August through October, although I would add here, and I have a chart in a minute, that's really seasonally dependent. There was also a fire, if you remember, a few years ago that we think is impacting the flows. There's some literature that suggests that stream flows after a fire can bump up about 10% or so or more. And so really the period we want to affect here is mid-August through October. We've taken a few flow measurements the last few years, and I'll show you that in a second. And finally, down here at the bottom, any improved flows down here should improve stream processes. Now that's going to do it through two things. One, it's going to leave more water in stream. But two, remember these irrigators can go get their water from the stream, which means that in late summer, if they're not getting their water, they could go improve their push-up dam. They could go try to do some things in stream to try to get their water. So we want to try to keep them from doing that. Limiting factors. Restore floodplain functionality. I won't go through that and read all that. I'll give you a second if you want to read it. You'll see here normative flow is underlined, highlighted, or bolded. That's kind of the thing in the Yakima Basin. We're not likely to get back to natural flows. So we want to get as natural or as normative as we can. Here's where we're going to work with these landowners. There's 3 parcels involved. There will be 2 wells. Again, it's pretty straightforward because, you know, this is a developed area. We've gone through looking at whether the water is physically available. The next stage of the project is going to make sure that the water rights can change. The water would be legally available. One thing to note here is that this parcel is owned by one person. This parcel is, these other 2 parcels are owned by the other person. The question, and which is a fair question, I assume someone might ask this, is why aren't we doing it 1 well per parcel? Because in our eyes, in Trout Unlimited's eyes, that would be too much benefit compared to the private individual versus the public benefit that we're receiving. And so what we want to make sure here is that we get the public benefit without conferring. We do that balancing out without conferring too much private benefit. It doesn't stop them from using their water, common ownership. So the concern there is kind of alleviated. And before I go to the next slide, I'll actually point out that this topographic line right here is about the pathway of the existing ditch. And these water users, if you remember the total project area, would have received their water from a lateral that came around here and moved this way. So these water users, they can still get their water, they can still legally get their water. It's very cumbersome. One of the things about Rattlesnake Creek is that it has kind of a unique water right in that it was awarded conveyance water. And so for every, oh gosh, this water right, if I remember correctly, is about all the water users of the 1.55 CFS, about 0.91 is actually irrigation and stock water, and then a 0.61 or give or take in that range is conveyance water. So even if you do nothing else, and even if they irrigate all their water and use all their water, you still get the 0.6 CFS in stream because it's the conveyance water. And what we've told the landowners, that conveyance water may stay with their water right, but they wouldn't be able to divert it from a well because they don't need to convey the water anymore. They're just using it. Does that make sense, everyone?
Say it again.
So the water rights, most water rights that went through the Yakima Basin adjudication, when they got a certificate, it just says on the certificate you get X amount, so you get 2 quantities. You get a QI and a QA, instantaneous and an annual. And most of them just say your instantaneous amount is, just as example, 0.5 CFS. And your total volume is 200 acre feet or something like that. And then it has all the other details of it. These water rights actually went through the adjudication, you got a small amount of conveyance water called out separately. And then I believe it was 2019, they went and through a Supreme Court decision, they got an additional amount of conveyance water. So on their water right, the conveyance water is actually called out separately from their other water.
Can you define conveyance water?
So it'd be the water that, and it's on everybody's water right, it would be the water that's used to get it from point of diversion to their place of use. That answers your question.
And which remains in the ditch, right?
No, so that's the beautiful thing about this project is that conveyance water is unique to each individual. So there's, there's other water users around here. There's other water users down there and they each have their own conveyance water quantity. So it won't stay in the ditch. It will come out and it will remain with the water right. So,
But if you did nothing, then the conveyance water is neither used by the water right holder, nor it just goes through the ditch and carries the water right. Sorry if I'm not.
no, that's okay. If we don't do this, this is a good question. If we do nothing, if we do the no action alternative and the landowners figure out they say, well, fine, we'll just get our water from our point of diversion. If they were to say, I don't want to use my water this year and put it into trust, lease it, whatever they're gonna do. My understanding is that because that conveyance water is unique to them, if one of their neighbors wanted to use that conveyance water, they would have to get approval to use that conveyance water. They can't divert it. It's not their water to divert. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
Overall project goal, as I said, reduce the diversion of surface water from Rattlesnake Creek. Another way to say this, improve stream flows for fish in Rattlesnake Creek. Implementation goal here, the overall implementation goal of the larger, as I like to call it, the larger project here is complete implementation of the wells and all the properties. For all the water, with all the water users and do all the water right changes and the necessary agreements. For this project in particular, we're requesting funding for is the 2A, the implement 2 wells versus selected water users. So the objectives, the permitting, we've used this approach, the Trout Unlimited has used this approach on other projects in central Washington. So the permitting, we feel pretty confident on. The one uncertainty that we have on permitting is the water right changes. Those go through both public comment and an appeal period, so we can't say with any until we get through the appeal period that they're successfully transferred or changed. Securing necessary construction contractors. We don't have a lot of concern about that. It's wells and electrical, although on any given year, procuring a well contractor, someone who can implement a well, could be a little challenging. But I feel like we have enough advance notice here, we're gonna be okay. Then we'll implement the wells, bring them online, so they're available to use by the irrigation 2028 season, the 2028 irrigation season. And then this little idea down here at the bottom is that once you have irrigators on what is an effective on-demand system, you can now work with them to potentially reduce their impacts even more to the stream. What I mean by that is if they all divert water at one time, if they all turn their sprinklers on the same day, at the same time, in theory, they would be impacting the groundwater by 0.9 CFS if they're all using their max quantity. This, because they're on wells, remember, would allow us to go in and say, we don't want you to all to use it at the same time of day. We want to create an agreement that allows you to use it at staggered intervals. So the largest water user may say, well, I need to use it at least 2 days a week. And we say, okay, you work with the other water users here, the other 4 folks. Say, okay, what does that mean for the other 4 people? In a way, what I'm talking about here is instead of just reducing the impact of the stream a little bit by each day, what I want to do is trying to find a way after these systems are online to reduce it even further and get the max benefit we can out of this. Existing conditions, here's what we have. This is from 2025, so this is last September. It looks much different, or will look much different this year than that does last year. What you see there on the top left, if you can imagine, this is effectively a picture taken in the same spot, just turned around. Water coming downstream toward you on the top left, water flowing away from you here on the bottom right. On the bottom right, it's a little difficult to see, but this is the existing wing dam, push-up dam, whatever you would like to call it, to divert water into a channel over here for the point of diversion. This is where the water flows. we take our flow measurements, when we've done flow measurements, we try to take them upstream of the diverters. So that 22 CFS is about the amount of water that was flowing downstream above all diversions, or above this one diversion. I would like to add that in September, that water should be very uncomfortable and you shouldn't want to go swimming. I can tell you though, from standing in it, we did a lot of wet weighting to measure the water and it was not painful. That's a little concerning. Again, remember this basin burned. So 25 is a drought year, lower flows because of the drought, but also potentially higher flows because of the fires a few years ago. So against 22 CFS, the reason I bring this up is that the total project at 1.55 impacts stream flows by up to 5%, as long as there's at least 30 CFS in stream. So on the left is the headgate and that diversion channel after 2018 or during 2018. On the right is the headgate and the diversion channel in January of 26. It's a little harder to get water this year, I assume. I'll leave it at that. And that's after the high flow event in December. I've not been back out there since January to take a look at it. My understanding is the irrigators that are still on the ditch are still using water, trying to get the water this year. So here's some discharge measurements just to give you an idea of what the stream looks like. If it's green, that means it was taken downstream of the RDA, Rattlesnake Ditch Association diversion. If it's blue, it means it was taken upstream of the diversion. Yeah. So we have a couple spot measurements. These are all spot measurements, by the way. But we have a couple spot measurements from 17, 18 in there, and then 23 before we got in there and did some more rigorous spot measurements. So you can see pre-fire, even late season in August, the water did okay, I guess is what I would say. Although 2018, upstream of the diversion, I mean, 19 less than 20 CFS, it's not great. The kind of the pattern you see here is the drop off basically from July into October. The stuff we see in October, if I remember correctly, we were actually taking flow measurements in snow, which means there was some precipitation. And then same thing, we see a steep drop off here in 25, down to 18, 19 CFS by the end of September. If it doesn't rain, that means the flows continue to drop. I'm not sure exactly what the base flow would be here. But again, because those blue measurements are upstream of the diversion, it means that this 18 CFS number right here actually can get lower further downstream. Specific recovery action addressed in-stream flows from Rattlesnake Creek, improved sediment transport with the Rattlesnake Creek and Natchez confluence, and address impacts of diversions on bull trout. Constraints, concerns. So the big one is the landowner willingness to follow through with water right changes. This is always an issue when Trout Unlimited does projects. Not because I think we're doing bad projects, it's just that landowners get nervous about water right changes. It's pretty common for a water right to go through a change process and get the proverbial haircut, right? It's gonna take a little bit, whether it loses a little bit of the QA, the annual quantity, or it loses a bit of the QI. Or even we've seen where it can lose a little bit of the acreage that it could be covered because not enough acreage was irrigated over the years. So there's gonna be that question. I think we can resolve that one pretty easily, but I can't say when a landowner might get cold feet about something. Physical availability of water for the wells. Again, our hydrogeologist has assured us the water is physically available. Although we are going out again this summer to take some more measurements of water depth in domestic wells in the area to get an idea of how the water looks during the summertime. We have some concern there, but we also have a number of the neighbors that want to participate also in those measurements. So I think we can mitigate that concern. Funding availability to complete implementation, that's always a challenge. This one is an expensive project, but they're all expensive now. And then we have the potential challenges to the water right changes. That's actually separate than the top, if someone were to challenge during the appeal period and it goes to the pollution control hearings board, I can't control what happens after that. And that can be a very arduous and long drawn out process. The other thing you can't see there is, because I didn't shape the box correctly, is drought. I put trout up there because a lot of my work is dealing with stream flows. Whenever there's a drought, my capacity for work gets split. And so I help the state get water from drought, which means that it gives me less time to spend on this project. So hopefully this is the last drought we have for at least 5 years, and I won't have any issue going forward.
Okay.
Total cost, $349,888. Conveniently comes in under $350,000 for design build. But that is actually pretty accurate. That allows for us to have some staff time. I have a budget breakdown in the proposal materials, but that allows for staff time, it allows for well implementation. Quite frankly, what we've noticed is that wells, you can plan that your best budgeting is probably going to be wrong. So fingers crossed, I guess. We're pretty confident in the number though. And we are pursuing other sources that would allow us to shift, funding around if we need to get the project done. Key dates, start this stuff, this fall, that's permitting and water right changes. And then it'll last until summer or fall of next year. Contract procurement will start this fall, and then into the winter, this winter. Site prep mobilization, it should move pretty fast. Like I said, this is a developed area. So I'm not even sure there's gonna be a whole lot of site prep. It really depends on how the landowners want a well installed. One thing I will add here is that I didn't put it on the maps, but we have a small cultural concern there. We have an area we have to stay away from, which is we have an area to stay away from. We know where the area is, but it doesn't mean that we might not run into something else because this is an alluvial fan overlooking the Natchez River, that sort of thing. Now that said, we also did have, as part of the preliminary design, we did have a full cultural resource survey and report completed, and I feel like we're in pretty good shape there, minimizing any impacts. And then well implementation testing 2028, and then complete as-built design. That's it. With that, I think we should.
So thank you, Justin. We have 9 minutes.
Justin, thanks for your presentation. Talking about the wells and domestic wells are relatively in the shallow aquifers up in that area. Would these wells go past the domestic aquifers? Then we got M&O on electrical pumps, and are the wells also going to be metered to comply with water rights, both from the creek as well as the aquifers?
So I'll answer your questions back, if that's okay.
That's funny.
First question is metering on the systems, on the new systems. The short answer is yes. Have to be metered to comply with water rights, and I believe last time we did this, it's actually written into the water right change that they have to meter and they have to report the meter results. Often that's on a bi-weekly or monthly basis. They might report just at the end of the year. There's an online system that they would do that with through now. But yeah, so metering there. What was your middle question?
Maintenance operation, and then also the depth of the well
Yep.
outside the domestic aquifer.
Yep. So the maintenance and operation, they already pump water. So they divert into a gravity feed ditch, but then they pump out of the ditch. So the landowners would assume the maintenance operation because it's already what they're doing. We've talked to them about it. They don't have any concerns about that because either way, they're already pumping. I think personally that this is a better option for M&O long-term. Or whatever it is, because I think you get, 20, 30 years before you have to start really worrying about a well and the infrastructure around it. Developing. Now, the third one that you asked about is how does this relate to domestic wells? So this is where the neighbors came in, and this is why they've offered us the opportunity to look at their domestic wells this summer. Is they're concerned, they do have concerns if we drill too close, and these folks turn on irrigation wells and their domestic wells could be impacted. There are a few domestic wells out there that are completed in the basalt. Those are the properties that are pushed more up against the hills. There's, our hydrogeologist, has said there's a relatively thick layer of this, Rattlesnake Creek aquifer that should be available. It kind of depends on when the wells were completed. There's a couple that are very deep out there, several hundred feet, and there's a couple that are 45 feet-ish. If we think there's gonna be a concern, we have a kind of a pathway over on the side. There's another nonprofit that I know about that actually is set up specifically to help rural domestic water users get their water. One of the things that we've been told is that the folks that are drilled into the basalt aquifer have a very low flow rate. Relative to the folks that are not drilled, that might be in the Rattlesnake aquifer, have no issue getting water. In fact, I think one of the wells is between 35 and 45 feet deep and never has an issue with water. When we did our water measurements in January on the wells, we frequently hit groundwater at 20 feet. Now, that's January, that was during higher flows. That's why we're going back out here into the woods to verify those results. But it is on the front of our mind, because we don't want to impair someone's ability to plug.
Thank you.
Justin, the preliminary project identified 5 users, is that right? Are you just, is this 1 of 5 or is this 2 of 5? This is 2 of 5. The reason to not go 5 of 5?
Cost. We're still working on the preliminary designs. And in the interest of full disclosure here, if we ask for over 350, we have to have completed preliminary design. We don't have it yet. They're in process. But then again, we also think this project, we can get funding elsewhere. So the plan is that the larger project, we're going to take this CERT money, use it to leverage to get additional funding from another source. And then probably another source, because that's usually how these things work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you use this funding for matching funds?
Matching and or leveraging, yes, depending on how the other funding source calls it. So some of them don't use the term match, and they'll say, "Oh, you're leveraging it." Although Katie's sitting in the back,
Same thing.
Trout Unlimited, we just submitted to an application for U.S. Fish and Wildlife money, and this would be the matching for U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
How many diverters are on the Rattlesnake? Roughly.
No, let me go back.
Is it fair to say, since Boyd moved his diversion, this is the only significant diversion to that, and the rest are smaller pumps?
Yeah, so what you can't see is if you look at an aerial image, I don't know what it is, 2 miles upstream, there is a single diverter buried in the canyon up there, like tiny little property. That one is probably as low an impact as a diverter could have, given the proximity and the setup. So this ditch, diverts here. I don't remember the exact number of water users left out of the ditch. It's probably total is around between 10 and 15. This would be 5 of them. Oh gosh, 1 water right covers this. 2, 3, 4, and 5. But this is 1 water user. This is another water user. There, so that's how you get the 5 out of it. The other water users are still trying to get their water. Quite frankly, it's the total diversion out of the creek. If everybody's trying to divert, is only like 4.1 CFS. It's a very shallow gradient, low gradient ditch. What I've been told is that makes it very hard to get the water. It doesn't help keep itself clean. It even makes evaluating, like putting a pipe or something in, really difficult, because the pipe can't clean itself. It can't flush the sediment out. So we have talked with the other water users. We have asked them if they would like to participate. Right now, the answer is no. What I'm really hoping, and I'm really crossing my fingers about this, is that we can get 1 or 2 water users online and they can basically go out there and see, oh, look, the money that you were spending to help maintain the ditch, you now just spend on power. And you literally have full control of your own water right. You go out there, you hit a switch, you pull your pods around, the field's irrigated, you're done. We don't have to worry about maintaining the ditch. We don't have to worry about any HPAs, anything like that, so. There are, if I remember correctly, though, there are maybe a diversion here. I think there might be 1 or 2 small diversion, like pump screen diversions already. So again, similar to these folks, I would call those on-demand systems. If the pump's not running, they're not working. This is the only, as Alex said, this is the only large surface water diversion.
There's another 12 CFS diversion on the creek.
There is a side channel on the creek that diverts. It's not screened. Because it's there's irrigation version.
A non-consumptive side chain.
Yes, Kitty.
If you take the 5 users off of the ditch, is there enough flow to get the other 5 users their water?
These folks have not used their water the last couple of years, and they have tried to get their water, so I assume the answer is yes. This is one of those unfortunate places where we've offered to work with those other water users around the ditch. Until they want to come forward and work with us, we can't really. I don't know another way to say this, we can't really worry about it. It's not that we're trying to hang them out to dry, it's that we just, if they don't want to work with us, we can't work with them, and if they're still trying to get their water and are able to get their water, then I guess there's some water.
So with that said, is there potential litigation from those other users that now don't have the water availability that they should have from this project?
I don't,
Sorry.
we can go to lunch after this if you want, because there's a lot,
That was my question.
there's some weird ongoing litigation up there anyway. I don't exactly understand why, but this is an area where kind of like they share, in fact, there's a lot of mailboxes like right down here or something. It's like they share a mailbox post. And
Did you say Hatfield and McCoy on it?
I mean, basically, my understanding is they kind of like watch to see who's at the mailbox, you know, and like wait to go get their mail. I don't know, because the water rights are all individual. I don't think there would be a way for them to do it, because they're, you know, they all went through the adjudication together. Now, had they gone through as like a water users association and tried to do this and diminish it, I think there would be something there, but maybe there is. We'll find out.
What's the current and future level of regulation, whether it's water master or whatever, on the creek? Because the easiest answer is just crack it open.
The current level, well, I don't work, the answer to that is I don't work for the Department of Ecology and can't speak for them. But I can say that the Department of Ecology has limited resources in terms of stream controllers and water masters. And until they were to get a complaint up here, I would be surprised if they could go up and check. Now, that said, this is also why we like doing these types of systems, because quite honestly, they're super easy to monitor and to make sure they're not overusing. I also feel like, just personally believe that the folks that are diverting the water aren't trying to do anything nefarious. I feel like they're trying to stay within their water rights. Now, that said, they do have, you know, the flume that's got to be angled just the right way, and you have to read a gauge on the side. And it's kind of like, well, what time of day did you read it? Was it cloudy? Did you get down on your knees to read it? Did you stand at an angle to read it? So there's always some read error going on there and some measurement error, but, you know, if this project goes through, or when it goes through, maybe there would be more, more regulation on the creek, but that would be for college, I guess.
We are at time. Was anyone sitting on a hot question? Follow up from Katie?
What's the 12 CFS non-consumptive side channel? Because isn't that like half of the screen?
Yes and no. It's a side channel. Kicks off right here. I don't think I have a better picture. Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
so it's a side channel that was developed for fish habitat, flows through this. The 12 CFS though is, that's when flows are at a certain level. It drops down as flows drop. So it's, I believe, what is it, 12, 6, and 4? And it's on Bob's property, so Bob can speak to it.
It is a side channel. It was put in 12, 15 years ago as a surfboard project. And it does provide a mile of riparian off-channel salmon rearing habitat. And the levels that we take out of the creek to go into the side channel are regulated between 12 and 4, depending on the time of the year.
Bob gets, I don't know whether an award or a warning for having been the only ever private landowner to apply directly for a surfboard grant without applying through nonprofit or government entity that was used to dealing with the grants, so. you've got to
Well,
learn a
that's
lot
because
about
I got Jen's help with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Echo an earlier question, are there land freeze codes?
That is a very good question. To the fish managers.
What was the question?
Joel, maybe.
On the land where it-
Well, that's the land
Are there
bridge.
lamp
We
residents?
do,
I don't know. if they're-
we've been EDA surveys in 2018. I think we had a low hit in Western Brook. I can't remember, did Ralph actually find the property
You
in
might
Pine
go into the side channel and check, you did not find anything.
Okay, because we have a hard time just finding suitable habitat where we don't have, where it's like public access. Like I'm fine with knocking on doors, because sometimes you go, answer or say no, you know? So we don't survey this creek often, the last time we did it like 2 or 3 years ago. So if there is a presence, it's not Pacific lamprey, which is our target main species, but maybe Western Brook residential, but we just haven't found it yet. So they're definitely in the Natchez, like high population of Western Brook, so we put Pacific lamprey in there, but just in Rattlesnake kind of stuff.
It's, it's a very fashion strain.
Yeah.
And it-
We need sediment deposits, and I feel like it blows it every year, so if lamprey aren't going up. If lamprey aren't going up, they might just be washing out into the main stem.
So this is effectively the amount of fine sediment you get.
Mhm.
Most, in fact, after that December flow event, most of the channel looked like exceptionally clean gravels like that.
Yeah, so if there's any, it might be like a few Western brooks just kind of hanging out until it flows out again. So I don't really have I don't think it's an impact anything.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin.